Horsley, Communications Director for Granite School District. This next video segment is a school community council training for all members of the school community council. Now, some of this information may be a little redundant for those of you who have been on a school community council before, but it does include some new information and changes in the law, as well as some points of emphasis for issues that we continue to find throughout our school community councils. So I hope that the information is helpful for both our new members, where we will get a little more in depth on the land trust plans and the SSAP, as well as for our returning members to remind them of some important principles and concepts. One of the key concepts of school community councils is that this is a parent-driven process, and we want to emphasize that point because oftentimes, I don't want to say oftentimes, in some rare occasions, sometimes our principals feel like they need to take control of this process and kind of push the direction of the school community council when our parent members aren't comfortable stepping up and doing that. And we hope that you do feel comfortable. We hope that our principals are guides on the sides and that our parents are taking the leadership role in our school community councils within our schools and leading this process. And the training here is provided to give you enough and sufficient information to ensure that you feel comfortable taking on this role because it is a parent-driven process. Just as a point of emphasis and a reminder, we want to our meetings, our school community council meetings, have several components which are important. And one of those important components is that our meetings are open to the public. There is never a portion of the meeting that can ever be taken into an executive session under state law where other people are not invited to participate. And meeting schedules and rosters with contact information should go out to the patrons at least 6 weeks after the school year has started, and that information should be maintained and updated on a regular basis on the website. Agendas with date, times, and location and minutes from the previous meeting should also be on that website, but should be sent out and distributed appropriately, either using the phone system or via email, out to our parents as quickly as those agendas are adopted and are ready to go, and hopefully at least a week in advance of the meeting. It's important for councils to remember that they do need to adopt rules and order and procedure for conducting those meetings. I'm going to speak a little more about that in this segment video and also in the training for chairs and vice chairs as well, and that is a point of emphasis for this year. Some of you may be wondering what that is. I'll get a little more detailed a little bit later in the video. A quorum must be present at all time, and a quorum means 50% plus one. If you have 7 members of your school community council, maybe you have 5 parents and 2 employees, or yeah, that would be right. Then you would need at least 4 members of your school community council to be there at any given time in order to conduct business. If you have 8 members of your school community council, you would need at least 5 members present to conduct business. Now, the law does not stipulate the membership, which kind of members need to be there. If you have sufficient numbers and it's all parents and the principal, you can conduct a meeting. If it's the employee members and just a handful of parents, the meeting can still be conducted as long as there is a quorum present. It's important that roll call votes are recorded in meeting minutes, and we're going to get a little detailed on that a little bit later on. Voting should always be conducted in the meeting, and the principal is a voting member of the school community council. In the past, we've heard that principals were sending around an email just asking members to approve of their land trust plans or other measures, or just replying via email. That is not permissible. All voting should be conducted in the meeting. If you need to adjust your meeting schedule, hold an emergency meeting in order to facilitate voting, that is feasible. There should be at least 24 hours notice on any of those types of meetings, and they should be publicized as widely as possible using phone system, email, and the website in order to facilitate the public's participation in that meeting if they desire. Once again, it's always an important reminder that if you want to take action or vote on an item in your meeting, it does need to be on the agenda. Sometimes our discussions get off topics, and they're important, critical components of what school community councils are asked to do. Maybe it's dealing with school environment, but it's not on the agenda. It's important if you get to a point in that discussion, it's okay to have that discussion, But at some point, if you feel like you're going to take action or need to make some sort of decisions with regards to that item, then put it on your next meeting agenda and wait till the meeting is present. It's on the agenda item before you take action. Now I want to get into the SSAP and the School Land Trust Plan. It's important, and we talk about in the new member training, that we can't just be deciding that we want to purchase a certain item, or whether that be funding aides or part-time tutors, or providing some sort of intervention, or purchasing some sort of technology, and then find some goals or data that supports doing that. That's backwards. We always want to evaluate our data, whether that's assessment data, which now it's SAGE data, or quarterly benchmark information. We could look to our teachers who might have other critical assessment information or tests and scores that might help understand what the most critical needs in your school are. This isn't about providing supplemental technology for teachers unless that actually goes towards meeting an academic need in your school. And so it's very critical that we go through the right process in the right order to fund our plans. And so that's what you're going to do. You're going to assess your data, and you're going to look at information. It's important to remember too that you are looking at and reviewing 2 plans at any given time. You're preparing a plan for the next school year right now, and you're also executing and publicizing last year's plan. As I talk about with new members, it's good if you know what your goals from last year's plan were and are. It's better if your community knows that. And it's best if your community and your elected officials know what your goals are, and you're pushing that information out, and everybody's on board with your goal. Maybe it's, for example, to improve 4th grade math scores. So if you're evaluating that data, that's what the data shows you. You have some detrimental 4th grade math scores. Your kids are not up to snuff on those scores. You're going to then recommend and look at some actions, and that's why it's important that we have employee members on the School Community Council. They might be able to provide some professional expertise with respect to what types of interventions might help in improving those scores. And then as a council, coming back together and working collaboratively to write some steps for implementing those goals. Now the SSAP, the School Land Trust Plan, is a subset of your SSAP. You already have assessed the academic needs. You've now identified some priorities in preparing your SSAP. Now select goals in which you will focus your funds. And you get started by selecting a goal. Okay, we need to improve our 4th grade math scores. And now we're going to create a strategic plan to do that with some very specific interventions, or tutoring, or some technology. And now remember, your goals always need to be SMART. When we say SMART, we mean specific. We need to be as detailed as possible. They need to be measurable. We want to be able to know by the end of the year if we can, if our tests or other assessments can help us identify whether this is working or not. And surely they should be attainable. Everybody likes a big, hairy, audacious goal, shooting for pie in the sky. But when we're looking at these goals in particular, make sure it's something that we can actually accomplish with the interventions we're providing, with the technology we're potentially purchasing. Obviously, the goals should be relevant to the sub-steps that we're taking. And the timed portion is critical too. Obviously, we want to be able to do and accomplish what we want to do within the school year that this will be allotted. Lastly, your goals should be adhered to or meet with the Board of Education goals. You may or may not be aware, but the Board of Education has set 2 goals: improving academic achievement and increasing community engagement. Now, if you look at these goals, they may seem pretty broad, maybe not overly simplistic, but they are. If I showed you the document that goes along with these goals, and they've gone through the SMART process and created a 5-year strategic plan, in which we're in the middle of, that details to each department and each administrator what their role is in reaching these goals. and comparably we'd like your goals to have not necessarily a 40-page document behind it, but some reasonable information and data to support that goal, and some detailed steps are what's going to take place in the next year to accomplish that goal. Now, when we talk about these land trust funds, we're always going to, after we've assessed and we know how much money we have, a lot of times we do this backwards too. Sometimes we'll go, well, how much money do we have? Let's do this. Let's create a plan. Let's set some goals and then see if we have enough funding to implement that. Create a budget and then decide if there's somebody out there who can help supplement that. If we always decide what we're going to do based on how much money we have, we need to have a broader vision than that. We really need to look at the bigger picture and go, this is what we really need to accomplish. And do we have enough funds to do that? Now let's create a plan based on how much money we do have that gets us to this broader goal. It's always important to know what you can and cannot fund, and there's a detailed list in the handbook that we're sending you along with these video links. So I'd encourage you to look at that list. If you ever have questions about what you can or cannot fund, feel free to call Mitch Nerden or myself, and we can help you with that. But let me give you a general rule on what you can and cannot fund. If the data supports an intervention, a technology, or an aid or personnel, you can generally fund those things. A marquee does not improve academic achievement. A new sound system in the gym does not improve academic achievement at your school. And so you need to be able to back up anything that you fund with data showing how it's going to improve academic components, and it needs to be measurable. When we're looking at this, last but not least, is once again, you're always working on two plans at once. You're creating next year's plan and you're executing the previous year's plan. So make sure that you're taking time in each of your meetings to measure your progress from last year. If your goal last year was to improve math scores in the 4th grade, make sure you're spending time to decide if the aids that you're spending those funds on are actually improving those scores. If the quarterly benchmarks are showing an improvement in test scores, that's data that you should be looking at on a regular basis. Once again, execute and share results and publicize that information out to your community. It's not just critical, once again, I'm repeating myself, but it's very important. Our legislators know how much money is in this pot. It's over $3 billion that you're receiving the dividends from. And that pot continues to grow. And if they don't feel like you're utilizing these funds in an appropriate way, if it's making a difference at the local school level and improving academic achievement, at some point down the road, they could change this process and take control of those funds back and decide to do something different. And we really feel comfortable with the way this process works. We like the local control. We like our parents working to improve academic achievement at the local level. And so we'd hate to see that happen simply because we're not informing our legislators what's going on with these funds and how successful you are being. And that's why you got to measure your progress. You got to publicize that information, not just to your community, but to our elected officials. We send you a list of your elected officials that cover your school area, and on a regular basis, you should be shooting them an email, sending them a formal letter, inviting them to events associated with your goals and your plan, and letting them know how these funds are being spent and utilized. Show me the money, okay? When we talk about these plans, in the past we've had occasions where these funds in turn get utilized for a lack of or for declining enrollment. So the previous school year, let's pretend this school year on October 1 your enrollment counts came in low and suddenly you lost an FTE, you lost a teacher. But you didn't want to raise class sizes at that age group. And so we found that in certain circumstances, sometimes our school community councils will go revise the last year's plan, all the work that's been done in putting last year's plan together to implement this school year, and they will go back and fund a teacher instead to be a safety net for the declining enrollment. That is not what this money is for. And it should not be a slush fund of some sort to to fill a need. You're going to spend the whole year putting a plan together for next year. And I don't think any of you are excited at the notion that that plan would just be revised on a whim because something else comes up. You're carefully assessing data, you're looking at what the primary needs are, you're prioritizing those needs, and you're allocating a very specific intervention to address that academic need. Nobody wants their hard work to go to for naught. So make sure the land trust funds address the most pressing academic need and that you stick to the plan and spend the money on your plan. Too often we also have, sometimes we'll be implementing a plan and some grant money will come in or some increased FTE will come in and the money doesn't get spent. We need to make sure that we don't have any more than 10% carryover from the previous year. Can you imagine the a legislator looking at your plan and going, well, why did you carry over $10,000? If in Granite School District total there was a lot of money that was carried over in the previous year, and if that money's just sitting in there and not being used, our legislators are going to look at that and go, well, you're not spending the money, we're going to take that money back. And once again, we feel like this is a great process. We feel like parents should be engaged in these plans and working to improve academic achievement. We would hate for us to not follow through with our procedures and lose this great program simply because we weren't spending the money on the plans that we had created. Hold your principals accountable. Make sure there's a regular report on how the funds are being spent and that you're well aware of all that information. Now, sometimes there are circumstances that will require you to amend your plan. We hope that those circumstances are few and far between. Your plans are written and submitted in the spring. The money, the amount that you are estimated to receive is typically smaller than you actually get. So what I'm saying is you usually get a larger amount of funds. So make sure your plan considers what's going to happen if you get more money than is estimated. And so be specific to your goals, but flexible to various solutions that you could spend the money on, and that's detailed in your plan. Now, sometimes in the fall, a more pressing academic need may arise that was not anticipated. There is a process to amend the plan. Your school community council would meet and approve. Remember, those action items that you vote must be on the agenda. You can amend the plan on the website, and then your vote needs to be recorded. Essentially, in the meeting minutes, Bob voted yes, Sally voted nay, so on and so forth. Then the Granite School Board of Education has to approve any amended plans, and then in addition to that, the State Office of Education, the Land Trust section, then approves those amendments. So make sure if you're going to go through this process that it's for a worthy cause and that there is actually a more pressing need, and it's not just because you have declining enrollment. Now, there's some other plans that our schools are required to work with and to develop. School community councils in Granite School District are special, and I mean special in the sense that the school board has garnered and empowered our local school community councils with more authority than any other school community councils in the entire state. So in addition to working on your land trust plans, your reading achievement plan, you should be reviewing that and know what your reading achievement money, which is allocated at the elementary level, K through 3, what that's going to fund. Sometimes you'll hear the word DIBBLES. That's reading assessment data, and your principals should familiarize you with those reading achievement plan and what your school is doing to improve reading scores and ensure that our third graders are up to third grade level in their reading abilities by the time they reach that age level. Child Safe Walking Routes, otherwise known as SNAP plans, is worked through the Utah Department of Transportation. SNAP is their acronym, not ours. Now, this is no longer necessarily a requirement, but we still encourage our school community councils to identify safe walking routes to schools and publicize that information to their communities, hopefully at the beginning of the school year. And so this may be something you want to work on in the spring for the following fall. Construction happens, routes change, traffic things change, crossing guards change. We take all those routes that you propose, we submit them to local municipalities who then fund crossing guards and crosswalks and put up lighting and do other things based on the information you're submitting. So Granite School District is not in charge of crossing guards, but we do submit information to local police forces and municipalities so that they have the correct information and can evaluate that information in determining where to place crossing guards and lighting and those types of things, because they are the traffic safety experts. Last but not least, every year, a school community council should be reviewing bullying policies and procedures. Now, there's some general policies at the district level that you would review, but each school has some various policies that practices that should be reviewed by the school community council. You should know what a buddy box is. You should know what the text alerts are to send alerts on bullying or other dangerous behaviors. There's a lot of resources that go into anti-bullying programs, and we want you to know what's being done on a regular basis to ensure the safety of our students within our schools. In addition to this, you're going to be receiving information from the Board of Education on other things that we want that the Board of Education has empowered our school community councils to have input and say on. And some of those may be including scheduling at your school and staffing plans, things of that nature. And so, once again, Granite School District has taken this process. We believe in this process. We've gone above and beyond what the state law requires to empower our school community councils, because we feel like it's a great process, and we hope that you take that role and responsibility seriously and provide the valuable input and feedback that your principals and the district need. Just want to highlight a few election musts. You're going to be going through this process. Come next spring, you're going to be setting up your elections for the following fall. It's important to remember that you need to set those dates in advance. This isn't something we do at the last minute. This is something we do in May. We set up according to the schedule and put this together in advance of the election that will be held in the fall. Elections must be held open for 3 consecutive days and must start prior to September 20th. Incumbents are not automatically in. Just because you've been on the school community council does not mean you're automatically get to stay on. If there's other people who are interested in participating, then you need to run for re-election. And every parent gets 1 vote. It's not 1 per household. Guardians or anybody listed as a guardian or parent on the record should have a vote. If you're going to be doing votes with paper ballots, then when you pass out those ballots, you need to get signatures of those who accept those ballots to ensure the integrity of the vote, and only those who are eligible are able to vote. I've encouraged our principals to print off lists of all their eligible voters, which is the parents, and have a little spreadsheet, and when they hold those elections at SEPs or other back-to-school nights or other things like that, that they get the signature there right next to the name of the parent and then hand over the ballot. If you choose to do an electronic ballot, an online ballot, we can facilitate that for you. You need to let us know in the spring if that's something you'd like to do so that we can get it set up for you in the fall. An email address can count towards an electronic signature, and we do some things to ensure the integrity of the ballot when we do it electronically. It's pretty slick and it's pretty easy, and we kind of take the workload from you, and it actually improves participation in your elections dramatically. So we encourage you to use us in the communications department to help facilitate electronic elections. Now remember, when you're reviewing ballots, if it's paper ballots or even electronic ballot, the principal along with 1 employee member and 1 parent member must process that information and do the tallying, if you will. Last but not least, with respect to elections, those timelines and procedures need to be established before May 1st. And we'll be sending you information in the spring reminding you these things need to be on your agenda and you need to start setting that stuff up. A lot of times you'll want to have more parent involvement on your school community council. You have a lot more interest, so you'll raise the number of your council members. Make sure that those terms get staggered. No more than 50% of your council should be up for re-election at any given time. The reality is that if you have 7 members, 7 parents, then 4 of them would be up for re-election 1 year, 3 would be up the next year, so on and so forth. Sometimes when we add parents, we forget to do this, and then we'll come up and maybe you have 8 members on your school community council, you added 4 the previous year, and suddenly 6 of your parents are up for re-election and only 2 the next year. You would want to decide in a meeting and vote on how to stagger those candidates and members. Posting notice of candidacy information by May 15th of 2015. That includes information on how to be a member of the School Community Council, what the School Community Council is. I would invite you to think back to when you found out about school community councils. How did that happen? And decide if your school's doing a good enough job of informing people of what the work of the School Community Council is and what they could do differently to get that information out. If you're doing a good job of notifying people on a regular basis of your meetings, what's going on, maybe notices or summaries of meetings from the chair out to your community, you're going to have people who are interested in this process, and you're going to have competitive elections. I've seen it year to year, this process grow and our parental involvement increase, and that's good, and that's what we want in Granite School District. So make sure we're posting this information well in advance of our fall elections. We're doing it in the spring. We're going to send home information in the summer. We're going to collect as many candidates as we can before the deadline in the first part of September and before our election in mid-September. Deadlines for candidate declaration should not be prior to the first day of school. We would generally have that be done within the first 2 weeks of school with sufficient time previous to the actual election, at least a week. So essentially, you're going to start advertising in the spring for candidates. You're going to tell people in your community how many vacancies there are, and then you're going to start collecting declaration forms. Your principal will do that. And you can collect those all the way up till I wouldn't have your deadline more than sooner than the 7th day of school, but hopefully within the first 2 weeks of school. So as you get back into the school year within that first week, other interested individuals who may be new to the school would also have a chance to participate. Now, the law requires parental notification of election at least 10 days prior to that election. Now, if you set that date well in advance, like you were supposed to this coming May for next fall, you'll be well within election requirements as per state law. Now, I want to get to your websites, because this is a critical place and these are being reviewed on a regular basis, not just by the district, but by the state auditors and by private entities who wonder how well these funds are being utilized and how accountable our schools are being. Remember, on your websites, you need to have names and contact information for your members, email and phone. Employees can have the school address and school phone number. The proposed schedule for the year. This does not mean your schedule can't change. It does not mean you can't have emergency meetings with sufficient notice, but a proposed schedule is appropriate. A land trust plan summary from the previous year's plan, the one that you're working on right now in the current school year, the one that was approved last spring, submitted this fall, the one that you're funding this year, a summary from that, including accomplishments and how the money is being spent. And remember, you're going to want to be monitoring this on a regular basis anyway in your meetings. So please post summaries of that information on your website. You should send this information at home as well on a regular basis, preferably via email, but in some instances you may want to get additional input from your community. So feel free to create a flyer and send that information home. Rules of order and procedures should be adopted and should be on your website. And meeting minutes from the previous 3 years' meeting. This is a difficult requirement because sometimes our principals are new, or sometimes those meeting minutes have been lost. Just do your best to get as many meeting minutes compiled from the previous 3 years as possible and make sure they're on your website. Now, I talked in the beginning about how this is a parent-driven process, and I want to talk about what systematic parent engagement looks like in Granite School District. It means that parents are engaged and infused in everything that we do. Any strategies to solve some challenges at our school, whether it's school safety, traffic safety in the front of the school driveway, to academics, to recess, to school lunch, that if we have challenges or difficulties with any of those things, that we have a parent engagement element, that our school community council is involved in that process, or the PTA is involved in some of those discussions. Not just those discussions, that parents are part of the solution. For example, in my school's my kids' elementary school, we had driveway issues, and it was a big safety problem. Parents were part of that discussion, and we were part of the solution. and we got volunteers to go out and help man the driveway to ensure that kids were getting where they needed to be in a safe way. That's just one example of parents being part of the discussion and part of the solution. Parent engagement discussion is infused in all of our systems, activities, and programs. We have a lot of committees at the district level where there's examples of this, where parents are driving our calendars and driving a lot of the processes, our novels committees, our sex ed curriculum. School community councils are the perfect place to address aligning parent engagement efforts with our school's individual goals. So we hope that school community councils, along with PTAs and other parent entities, are working with our schools on a regular basis to be engaged. We know that it does not matter the quality of the teacher, the quality of the school building, the location of the school. If parents are involved in their schools, then their kids do better. And so we want to invite our parents to feel welcome in our schools and be welcome in our schools and participate actively in our school environments. This concludes the All Members segment training for our school community councils. If you have any questions, you know my email and phone number. You can also contact Mitch Nurden. He's a great resource with respect to your land trust plan questions. You can always go to schoollandtrust.org. If you'd like more information, there's a lot of great detailed information there as well. This concludes this training segment. If you are a chair or a vice chair, I would also encourage you to watch a 3 to 4 minute video on community council chair responsibilities, and that will be posted in the same place. Thank you so much and have a great day.